There are moments when the world feels like it's holding its breath. Moments where everything changes, but no one realizes it yet. This was one of those moments. It began in the quiet of a garden. The night was heavy. The air carried a strange stillness, as if creation itself knew something was about to unfold. Under the dim light of the moon, he knelt, alone. Not surrounded by crowds, not lifted by miracles, not celebrated as a king, but alone, in deep sorrow. His heart was overwhelmed, not just by what he was about to endure, but by what it would mean.
Before we follow Jesus to the cross, we need to understand who it was that walked there. For 3 years, this man had turned the world upside down. He healed the blind, not with medicine, not with gradual therapy, but with mud and a word. He walked on water in the middle of a storm while his friends huddled in a boat, certain they were about to drown. He spoke to a dead man named Lazarus who had been in a tomb for 4 days, and that man walked out. He fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, and there were 12 baskets of leftovers. He made the lame walk. He cleansed lepers that no one would touch. He sat with prostitutes and tax collectors and the people that polite society had given up on. He looked at the most broken, most ashamed, most rejected people of his time, and he said, "You matter. You are seen. You are loved." The crowds adored him. Thousands would walk for days without food just to hear him speak. Children ran to him. Grown men wept in his presence without knowing why. And the religious leaders of his day, the most powerful, most educated, most respected men in all of Israel, they hated him. Because he didn't fit their mold. He didn't respect their rules when their rules contradicted his Father's heart. He called them whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, full of dead things on the inside. He was dangerous, not with weapons, with truth. And truth, in the hands of the powerful, is always the most threatening thing in the room. For 3 years they had been looking for a way to silence him. And as the Passover season arrived, the most sacred week on the Jewish calendar, they finally found their moment. His name was Jesus of Nazareth, and his final week on earth was about to begin. It was Sunday morning when he entered Jerusalem. Now, you have to understand, Jerusalem during Passover was electric. Over 2 million pilgrims flooded into a city built for far fewer. The streets were packed. The air smelled of roasting lamb and olive smoke and unwashed bodies pressed together. Merchants shouted. Children ran between legs. Tension crackled between Roman soldiers and Jewish nationalists who despised their occupiers. And into that scene, Jesus rode in. On a donkey. Not a war horse, not a chariot flanked by soldiers. A donkey. The animal of humility, of peace, of the common man. The prophet Zechariah had written about this exact moment 500 years earlier. "Rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly, and riding on a donkey." The crowd went absolutely wild. They threw their cloaks on the road ahead of him. They cut palm branches and waved them like flags of victory. They shouted, "Hosanna," which means "save us now," at the top of their lungs. And the Pharisees, watching from the edges, said to one another in panic, "Look, the whole world has gone after him." But here is the heartbreaking thing.
many of those same mouths that screamed Hosanna on Sunday would be screaming Crucify him by Friday. The crowd wanted a king who would overthrow Rome. They wanted revolution. They wanted a warrior Messiah with a sword in his hand and fire in his eyes, ready to drive out every oppressor and restore Israel to its former glory. They were not ready for what he actually came to do. Because his kingdom was not built on political power. It was built on something far more subversive, far more radical, far more permanent. It was built on love. And love was about to go to war with death itself. Monday morning, Jesus walked into the temple. The outer courts, what was supposed to be a place of prayer for all nations, had been turned into a marketplace. Money changers exploited pilgrims who needed to exchange currency to buy animals for sacrifice. Merchants gouged the poor. The smell of livestock mixed with the sound of arguing and coin counting in what should have been a house of worship. And something rose up in Jesus that he rarely showed in public. He overturned the tables. He drove out the merchants and the money changers. He looked at what his Father's house had become, and he called it a den of robbers. The temple leadership was furious. Their income stream had just been shut down by a carpenter from Galilee. The decision was made. He had to die. And quickly, before Passover week ended and the pilgrims went home and their moment passed. For the next 2 days, Jesus taught in the temple courts. He answered every trap they set for him with such wisdom that eventually no one dared ask. Crucifixion was not just execution. It was Rome's most brutal invention, designed to break the body and humiliate the soul. It was slow. It was merciless. And there was no escape. They drove nails through his wrists, right where the nerves ignite the fiercest pain. A surge of fire shot through his arms, relentless, unending. Then through his feet, fixing him to the wood. The cross was lifted and dropped into the ground. The jolt tore through his wounds, pain, like nothing the human body was meant to endure. But crucifixion doesn't kill quickly. It suffocates. Hanging there, his chest could not expand. To breathe, he had to push up on pierced feet against torn flesh, just to take one more breath. Every breath was a choice to stay, a choice to endure, a choice to finish what he came to do. Above his head, a sign was nailed. Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. Written for all to see. Mockery to some, but truth to heaven. 2 criminals hung beside him. One mocked him, demanding a miracle. But the other saw something different. Through the blood, through the pain, he saw a king. And with his final breaths, he whispered, "Remember me." And Jesus, lifting himself through agony, answered with mercy. A dying man saving another. Below him stood his mother, watching, helpless, heartbreaking. And even then, even there, he cared for her. Because love doesn't stop, even on a cross. Then the sky went dark. Not clouds, not shadow, darkness, as if creation itself could not bear the moment. And from the cross he cried out, my God, not in defeat, but carrying the weight of separation,
of sin, of all humanity placed on him. He became what he came to destroy. Not for himself, for us. "I am thirsty," he said, and they lifted a sponge to his lips, a small act in the middle of something eternal. Then he lifted his head, and with strength that should not have remained, he declared, "It is finished." Not the end, but the completion, the debt paid in full. Every sin, every failure, every broken piece of humanity covered. And then he breathed his last. The earth shook. The temple curtain tore from top to bottom. The barrier was gone. God was no longer distant. The way was open. And a hardened Roman soldier who had seen death countless times looked up and said, "Surely this was the Son of God." Because even in death, there was something different about this man, something powerful, something divine. Because this was never just a death. This was love on display.